The movie opens with Sierra Belmont, a wealthy young woman who has never had to manage even the smallest part of her own life. She lives inside her father's luxurious mountain hotel, where the lights, curtains, and temperature can all be controlled with the touch of a button. Her room overlooks a spectacular snowy landscape, yet Sierra barely notices because she is busy talking to her equally privileged boyfriend, Tad. She even pays someone to call and wake her every morning. When her personal assistant enters with an entire beauty team and racks of designer clothing, it becomes obvious that Sierra has grown up surrounded by people who handle everything for her. Her father has recently offered her a position at the hotel, hoping she will finally begin building a serious future. Sierra has no interest in the job. Tad, whose entire career consists of posting glamorous content online, encourages her to reject it and concentrate on becoming an influencer. The moment he notices his engagement numbers dropping, he ends their call so he can investigate what happened. His reaction tells us that he values attention more than almost anything else. Elsewhere, we meet Jake Russell, a hardworking widower who owns a small family ski lodge called the North Star Inn. Jake is meeting Sierra's father, Mr. Belmont, to ask for financial support. Belmont refuses to slow down for the conversation, telling Jake that if he wants to speak, he must keep walking beside him. Jake explains that his modest lodge teaches young visitors how to ski. Once those beginners become more experienced, many eventually visit Belmont's expensive resort. If North Star disappears, Jake argues, the entire local tourism community will suffer. Belmont listens but declines to invest, leaving Jake with no solution to the bankruptcy threatening his home and business. As the meeting ends, Sierra arrives downstairs wearing an oversized hat and enormous sunglasses. She accidentally collides with Jake, staining her expensive outfit. Sierra reacts with outrage while Jake apologizes and continues on his way. Because her face is mostly hidden, he never gets a clear look at her. At lunch, Sierra introduces Tad to her father. Belmont asks about Tad's business, but Sierra quickly explains that Tad is not a conventional businessman. He is a social media personality with an enormous following. Belmont is clearly unimpressed, though he avoids criticizing the relationship because he loves his daughter and does not want to push her away. Jake returns to North Star and finds his young daughter, Avi, preparing to visit the town's Christmas wishing tree with her grandmother. Jake declines their invitation. He used to make wishes there with his late wife, and the tradition is still too painful. He asks Avi to make an extra wish for him. When his mother-in-law asks about the meeting with Belmont, Jake admits it failed. Their last realistic source of financing is gone, and the inn may have to close. She tells him to remain hopeful and trust that help may arrive in an unexpected form. Back at the Belmont Resort, Mr. Belmont tells Sierra he will be traveling for a week. During their conversation, Sierra notices a treasured object he once bought for her mother. Belmont is surprised she remembers it because Sierra was only 5 when her mother died. He embraces her, promises to return soon, and asks her to take care of herself. Tad arrives in a flashy car towing a snowmobile. He wants to take Sierra into the mountains for a photo shoot. Sierra orders her assistant not to disturb her and leaves with him. At the same time, Jake is performing maintenance at North Star alone because he cannot afford additional employees. He later takes 2 guests on a guided trip through the snow. Tad drives the snowmobile into a restricted mountain area so he can capture dramatic photographs. After taking several shots, he suddenly produces an engagement ring and proposes. The moment appears romantic, but Tad is mainly concerned with filming the proposal and using it to increase his online reach. While this is happening, Avi hangs her wish on the Christmas tree. A mysterious elderly man standing nearby makes a quiet gesture, as though the wish has set something magical in motion. A violent storm sweeps across the mountain. Strong wind throws Sierra from the ridge, while Tad falls in another direction. Sierra tumbles through the snow until her head strikes a tree. During his guided trip, Jake notices what appears to be a body in the distance. He reaches the unconscious woman, carries her to safety, and brings her to the hospital. When Sierra wakes, she cannot remember her identity, her family, or even her own name. She has no identification with her, and holiday staffing makes an immediate investigation difficult. A police officer explains that she may need to remain at the hospital until someone reports her missing. Jake does not want her spending Christmas alone in a medical ward, so he offers her a room at North Star. The doctor supports the idea, explaining that ordinary routines and familiar activities may help restore her memory. Sierra agrees. Jake does not recognize her as the woman from Belmont's hotel because he saw only her hat and sunglasses during their brief encounter. At North Star, she receives simple secondhand clothing. For the first time in her life, Sierra is wearing something that was not selected by a stylist or purchased from a luxury label. Meanwhile, Tad wanders through the snowy forest until he discovers a remote cabin. A strange older man named Ralph lives there. After a tense introduction, Ralph offers him coffee and shelter. Tad is horrified by the rough conditions and nearly faints when he notices worms crawling in the food. The next morning, Sierra opens her window expecting a grand mountain view, but instead sees ordinary guests and workers moving around the small property. Avi enters and explains that she cannot continue without a name. She suggests choosing one from her teddy bears. Sierra likes the name Sarah and decides to use it until her real identity returns. Downstairs, Sarah insists on making breakfast. She has never cooked and fails almost immediately. Jake gently asks her to sit with Avi while he finishes the meal. Sarah, who once considered caviar a normal breakfast, discovers that she genuinely enjoys the simple food and warm company. At Belmont's resort, Sierra's assistant and head of security search her room. The bed is neatly made. Her assistant immediately concludes that Sierra never returned because she would never make her own bed. In the forest, Ralph gives Tad a spear and tells him he must hunt if he expects to eat. Jake explains to his mother-in-law that he cleans the lodge himself because the business cannot support a housekeeper. Remembering the doctor's advice, Sarah asks for routine tasks. Every attempt becomes a disaster. She cannot organize equipment, clean properly, handle laundry, or understand basic appliances. She pours far too much detergent into the washing machine and walks away before the room fills with foam. Later, Sarah helps Avi brush her hair. A childhood phrase suddenly comes back to her, something her mother used to say. The memory is small, but it proves her past is still somewhere inside her. Their excitement ends when Jake discovers the flooded laundry area. Exhausted and stressed, he raises his voice. Sarah feels humiliated and walks outside, telling the lodge horse that she seems incapable of doing anything correctly. She decides to gather firewood so she can contribute. Jake overhears her and later follows when she goes into the snow. Sarah trips, and he rushes to help. Feeling guilty for shouting, he invites her to join the family at the Christmas market. She accepts and is enchanted by the lights, music, decorations, and community atmosphere. During the outing, Jake explains the history of North Star. His late wife's family owned the property for 3 generations, and her father gave it to them as a wedding present. After she died, Jake dedicated himself to preserving it for Avi. Losing the inn would mean losing the final living connection to his wife and her family. A vendor displays a snow globe similar to the keepsake Sierra once saw in her father's room. Sarah experiences a faint memory of her mother. Jake buys the globe for her. They later attend the town celebration, listen to the mayor's Christmas speech, and watch fireworks fill the sky. Back at North Star, Jake asks whether the snow globe helped her remember anything. Sarah says she saw only a brief image of her mother. Before going upstairs, she tells Jake she is certain they never met before because she would remember someone like him. The comment leaves him quietly touched. Sarah begins changing. She wakes early, makes her own bed, and gradually learns to prepare breakfast. The peaceful routine gives her a happiness her luxurious life never provided. While skiing with Jake and Avi, she loses control on a slope, and Jake races after her to prevent an accident. One afternoon, Sarah finds Jake's mother-in-law looking through the inn's memory book, filled with notes and photographs from past guests. The older woman is saddened by the possibility that the property will be sold. She leaves the album with Sarah. When Sarah later returns it to the office, she discovers a small bride ornament. Jake explains that he and his wife bought the ornament together. Since her death, he has been unable to place it on the Christmas tree. He then mentions a toy drive for struggling families. Although North Star is nearly bankrupt, Jake continues helping local charities. Sarah decides to attend. At the event, a woman wearing glowing Christmas lights tells Sarah that Jake is one of the most generous people in town. His donations and volunteer work helped keep several programs alive. Sarah becomes even more impressed. When they return home, the emotional closeness between her and Jake nearly leads to a kiss. Jake stops himself, explaining that she may have a husband, boyfriend, or fiancé waiting somewhere. Sarah goes upstairs, disappointed but deeply moved by his restraint. The next morning, she develops an idea to save North Star. The memory book contains contact information for former guests. Sarah suggests inviting them back for a Christmas Eve celebration and giving them an opportunity to support the lodge. Jake rejects the plan because he refuses to beg for charity. Sarah argues that accepting help from people he once helped is not weakness. They exchange angry words until Jake finally agrees to consider it. His mother-in-law later tells him not to close his heart forever. She loved her daughter, but she does not want Jake to spend the rest of his life alone. She gives him permission to move forward and love again. Sarah briefly considers leaving because she believes her presence is creating conflict. Avi begs her to stay, and Sarah changes her mind. Jake finally hangs the bride ornament on the tree, symbolizing his willingness to let go of some grief. Together, the family prints invitations for the Christmas Eve fundraiser. Ralph advises Tad to create a survival blog, promising that his miserable adventure could become excellent content. At the Belmont Resort, Mr. Belmont returns and is furious to learn Sierra is missing. He orders the staff to contact police and search everywhere. Investigators eventually find a clue in Tad's abandoned vehicle, making it possible to trace his location. As the party approaches, Sarah worries that her second-hand clothes are unsuitable. Jake's mother-in-law gives her a beautiful dress. At the police station, Tad finally appears and tells Belmont about the proposal, the storm, and Sierra's fall. An officer overhears and realizes the unidentified woman staying at North Star may be Sierra. That evening, Sarah walks downstairs in the new dress. Jake is speechless. They dance together in the small room prepared for the celebration. The mayor arrives and announces that he brought additional guests. Dozens of former visitors enter, filling North Star with people who remember Jake's kindness. Jake tries to welcome everyone but struggles to ask for assistance. One guest stands and explains that Jake once taught his son to ski without charging anything. He offers a check. Another couple recalls that Jake let them stay during their honeymoon when they could not afford a room. The mayor donates, and soon nearly everyone contributes. Jake's family is overwhelmed with gratitude. Jake introduces Sarah as the woman who helped change his life. Before he can finish expressing what she means to him, Mr. Belmont and Tad arrive. They call her Sierra. The name unlocks her memory. Tad shows her the engagement ring, and every detail returns: the mountain, her father, the hotel, and her old life. She looks at Jake and remembers that he rescued her. Belmont sincerely thanks Jake for saving his daughter. Sierra also thanks the family, but she leaves with her father and fiancé. Jake, Avi, and the others are heartbroken. Back in her luxury suite, Sierra cannot stop thinking about North Star. Her assistant is stunned to find her bed made. When the styling team presents elaborate clothing for a press conference, Sierra chooses something simple. She refuses caviar and prepares the same breakfast she learned to make with Jake. At the press event, Sierra publicly thanks Jake and his family for rescuing her and giving her a home. She recommends North Star Inn to everyone watching. Because Sierra belongs to one of the country's wealthiest and most recognizable families, the endorsement creates instant publicity. Phones begin ringing at North Star with reservation requests. Tad interrupts the event and announces that he and Sierra will soon travel together. Jake watches the broadcast and assumes she has returned completely to her old world. Avi tells him that her Christmas wish was never for herself. She wished that he would find someone who loved and cared for him. She believed the wish came true when Sarah entered their lives. Jake finally understands he cannot let fear decide for him. He rushes out to find Sierra. At Belmont's hotel, Sierra tells her father she has reconsidered the job he offered. She wants to work, but she does not want a position handed to her inside his company. Belmont supports her decision. At North Star, Jake's mother-in-law struggles to answer the nonstop calls from guests wanting rooms. Sierra meets Tad and returns his ring. She tells him their relationship is over. Tad's main concern is whether he can post the breakup online for engagement. His reaction confirms that he never understood what she needed. He later appears to find a new romantic interest who is a man rather than another woman. Jake arrives expecting Sierra to have left, but she is still there. She tells him she is staying. When he explains that her recommendation has completely filled the inn, Sierra asks whether he needs help managing the work. Jake says he does. She then reveals that her father has agreed to finance renovations for the entire resort, not merely rescue the lodge temporarily. Mr. Belmont arrives with Avi, and the families gather together. Sierra has not rejected privilege itself. She has learned that comfort means little without purpose, responsibility, and genuine relationships. Jake has learned that accepting support does not make him weak, and that honoring his late wife does not require remaining alone forever. Their Christmas miracle is therefore more than restored memory or financial rescue. Sierra becomes capable of making her own bed, cooking her own food, choosing meaningful work, and recognizing the difference between public attention and real love. Jake opens his heart, saves the inn, and allows a new future to grow beside the memories he will always carry. The story ends with North Star busy, hopeful, and full of life. Sierra remains with Jake and his family. Mr. Belmont supports their plans, and Avi sees her wish fulfilled. What began with a fall from a mountain becomes the event that gives every character exactly the change they needed. The film builds its emotional contrast through two completely different ideas of success. Sierra begins surrounded by everything money can purchase, yet almost none of it requires effort, sacrifice, or personal choice. Tad measures life through followers, reactions, and public image. Jake measures it through responsibility, loyalty, and service. North Star may look small beside Belmont's resort, but it contains the human warmth Sierra's expensive world has been missing. Her memory loss allows the story to remove every label that previously defined her. Without the Belmont name, luxury wardrobe, assistant, or influential fiancé, Sierra has to discover what kind of person she can become. At first, Sarah is helpless because nobody ever allowed Sierra to practice ordinary skills. Her failed breakfast, overflowing laundry machine, and disastrous cleaning attempts are played for comedy, but they also reveal a serious weakness created by privilege. She was protected from inconvenience so completely that she never developed independence. Jake initially sees Sarah as another responsibility he cannot afford. He already carries the lodge, his daughter, his grief, and the threat of financial collapse. Still, his instinct is to protect a stranger. That decision establishes his character before romance begins. He offers Sierra a home without expecting payment, status, or recognition. Later, when he learns who she really is, his kindness is not suddenly transformed into a business opportunity. He remains the same man who found an unconscious woman in the snow and refused to leave her alone at Christmas. Avi influences nearly every important change. Her wish seems to invite Sierra into their lives. She gives the unidentified woman a temporary name, accepts her mistakes, and encourages her father to recognize his feelings. Because Avi remembers her mother, she does not want Jake to erase the past. She simply understands that grief and new love can exist together. Her emotional intelligence becomes stronger than the judgment of many adults around her. Jake's mother-in-law also plays an essential role. She is grieving her own daughter, yet she refuses to use that grief to imprison Jake. When she tells him he has permission to love again, she releases him from guilt he has carried for years. Hanging the bride ornament afterward becomes more meaningful because it represents acceptance rather than replacement. His late wife will always be part of North Star, but the lodge no longer has to remain frozen in the moment of her death. The Christmas Eve fundraiser changes Jake's understanding of community. He believes asking for help would make him a failure, but the returning guests do not see their donations as charity. They are repaying years of generosity. Every check represents a memory, a free lesson, an affordable room, a family celebration, or kindness offered when someone had very little. Jake saved North Star long before the party by building relationships with people who never forgot him. Sierra's return to Belmont's hotel proves that her transformation survives even after her memory comes back. She could easily dismiss Sarah as a temporary identity created by injury. Instead, she keeps the habits, confidence, and emotional clarity she gained. Making her bed and cooking breakfast are small actions, but they demonstrate that she no longer wants to be managed like a decorative object. Her public endorsement of North Star is also different from Tad's online behavior. Tad posts to attract attention toward himself. Sierra uses her influence to direct attention toward people who deserve support. Mr. Belmont changes as well. His initial refusal to assist Jake comes from viewing North Star only as a weak business. By the end, he understands its true emotional value. Funding the renovation is not a reward for rescuing Sierra. It is an acknowledgement that Jake's lodge contributes something his luxury resort cannot manufacture: history, intimacy, and belonging. Tad's final reaction makes the contrast unmistakable. Sierra returns his engagement ring after realizing that their relationship was built around convenience and appearance. Tad immediately wonders whether the breakup can become content. Even heartbreak is valuable to him only if it improves engagement. His inability to understand Sierra confirms why she can no longer return to the person she was before the accident. The romantic ending works because Sierra and Jake do not merely rescue each other. Jake physically saves her from the mountain, but Sierra helps save North Star and helps him re-enter life. He teaches her competence, humility, and community. She teaches him that accepting love and assistance does not betray his wife's memory. Their relationship becomes possible only after both characters abandon the identities that kept them emotionally trapped. In the final image, North Star is no longer silent or threatened by closure. Reservations arrive, renovation plans begin, and the people inside the lodge are connected by choice rather than obligation. Sierra has found work that matters. Jake has found hope beyond survival. Avi has gained the loving presence she wished for. And Mr. Belmont has learned to support his daughter without controlling her future. Christmas magic may have started the journey, but the lasting miracle comes from the choices they make after the magic is gone.